Hello and welcome. This is our CEO Network, and it is Wednesday, time for our Inner Journey podcast. And I am here with my co-host, beautiful friend who always pushes me outside my own comfort zone, Robert Morales.
Well, hello. That was such a nice intro. I appreciate the intro. I got so used to doing an hour intro that I appreciate yours even more so.
Yeah, so you always have to have those friends, right, that are willing to push you beyond what you think you're capable of, and that is you, my friend. So thank you.
Do you like and appreciate that I push your buttons?
For sure, yeah.
Oh, what kind of buttons are those?
Well, we're all about growth here at the Inner Journey, and it's all about having your buttons pushed and learning how to create something new for yourself. So yeah, absolutely. Love it. Yeah,
because I enjoy the drama, and I would like to give you another shot of drama.
Oh, great. Please. I'm waiting.
Today's topic was a little bit about drama and
yes.
People in our lives that give us too much drama, right? Yeah. And we did talk about it this week. So this week, if you tuned in last week, we talked a little bit, we hinted in this regard, but there's people in our lives that just seem to kind of cause a lot of shit.
Yeah, they cause a lot of shit, and they seem to be addicted to that shit.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody like that in your life?
Not so much anymore, because I think that now in these days I've learned to set boundaries within my life, and I don't feed that. Because I feel like every time that we get to a space where we don't feed something anymore, it's kind of like in martial arts when someone throws a punch at you, right? Yeah. And if you go with the punch, there's no resistance, and they just kind of fall and they go away. But if you're going to resist them, there's going to be a lot of drama.
Well, that's so hard with family, the one thing that I think a lot of people feel drama, because if it's just a friend, you can dismiss them and say, I'm never going to call that person again. F them. They were just a coworker. I don't work with anymore. I've known them for years. Forget it. There's so many people like that in high school. I was a loner in high school, so it's very easy to dismiss somebody like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to somebody like your family, how do you get rid of somebody that's causing drama in your life?
Yeah. The closer the relationship, the closer the emotional bond, I think the harder it is. And the more growth that we get to experience, because those are our biggest emotional challenges, right? And I call them they're our biggest emotional teachers. Yeah. Because through the learning of how to work with them and navigate through them, we get the biggest growth in our life. So it is hard, and worth it, right?
Yeah, and the biggest, I will say, because she doesn't watch the show right now anyway, but maybe in the future, I don't know if she'll ever go through any of these that we watch, is my sister. There's so much in her that I feel is so emotionally immature at this point in her life, and she doesn't recognize that. I've been so forgiving in where she's at, and kind of the projection of blame. It's so overwhelming, I think, for her that she doesn't even know why she's angry with me, but she holds on to that anger because, it makes her feel, I wouldn't say better, but it gives her a reason to be upset.
Yeah.
And so much of us sometimes just need a reason to be upset.
Yeah. I think it gives us a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
It gives us something to thrive on, and then really I think what it boils down to is we have an addiction to the chemicals, to the feeling of, anger or depression or overwhelm or victimization, we can become addicted to these things. And I think we'll probably go into a little bit about that, why that happens. But it is literally a physiological response. It's a chemical that downloads and that we become addicted to.
Yeah, because my previous work, a lot of what I did before doing the Inner Journey, before even doing anything I'm doing today, was behavior assessments, and you use behavior assessments to predict future outcomes. And a lot of that is pattern work, is really taking a back step. And I think it helps when it's not your situation, your drama, or your family.
Yeah,
I mean, that really does help.
Yeah.
When you take a back seat and you're like, oh my God, I see a pattern here. You get upset when things happen. So like in my family with my sister, she would get upset when all of us, I have a brother and hers, my sister, and then we have my mom, my dad. Whenever we got together, she would be upset and just frustrated, anger, and stomp away. And that was a pattern every time all of us as a collective family got together. Mm-hmm. It would be okay when it was me and her with my parents, or me and her and my other brother with our parents. It was always okay. But when it came to all of us all together, she seemed to kind of like have this pattern of being frustrated, upset. Nobody knew why she got up angry, but she would definitely walk away, definitely storm out and be frustrated to where everybody's chasing her.
Yeah, yeah. And that's it's an attention, right? Yeah. There's a payoff for her to behave that way. Why am I all of a sudden these last couple of weeks holding a pen every time?
You're being very poignant, I think.
It makes me feel very professional. I just
You're
realized
very astute with your pen there.
But it creates attention. There's always a sort of payoff, no matter what behaviors that we do. It's either we're getting some kind of payoff from it. Victim is usually some kind of attention, and so that's probably what she didn't realize, the payoff that she was getting. However, she craved that sort of attention, and then that's the way she knew how to get it.
Yeah, and then I become very reflective, and we'll talk about that as a technique too, but I become very reflective and like, did I do something, that caused this issue? And I couldn't identify that. And the last thing that we talked about, me and my sister, I really didn't understand why she was frustrated with me or why she was upset. She just was upset. And so I reflect, I'm like, okay, so what did I do? And there was really nothing clear in my mind that I did. So naturally the inclination is like, well, you're effed up. You're the one that's causing these problems, and we're caught in this turmoil where we don't communicate. We don't have an understanding between each other. We're not emotionally grown up enough to have a discussion, because if we were confident and we knew our emotions, be like, you know what, you got me frustrated, and I wanted to let you know, and it looks like you were frustrated, and thank you for telling me how you felt, and okay, let's move on. Never like that.
Right.
I don't think that's really in a lot of families. They don't really have those communications.
Right.
And if there's issues in your family, then it's really due to that emotional maturity and the ability to communicate effectively, how to say what your feelings are without blaming somebody else, because I think that's the go-to. Yeah. Like, why the hell are you acting like this?
Right. It's always the finger pointing outward, and we forget that the rest of the fingers are pointing in, right?
Yeah.
Like, so
I think it's just easier that way.
Yeah. It is very, very easy to point and blame, because we don't want to take the responsibility. And I think that's what makes this emotional intelligence journey that we're always talking about so difficult, is because you really have to be willing to take a look at yourself and be really brutally honest with like where you're responsible for this situation, And sometimes it's frustrating when we're going through this journey of learning ourselves and learning where to take responsibility, and yet navigating through people who are not on that journey, and it becomes very sticky at times, and it's a lot to manage. It's worth it. It's a lot to manage.
And I think the toughest pill, the toughest situations are when it comes to family and the people you love, the people that are closest to you, because it's not like I can divorce my sister. I divorced my ex-wife pretty quickly. I mean, when I found out she was with somebody else, I'm like, I gave her about a week to kind of like go to counseling. And when I didn't see that pattern behavior take place, I'm like, came to the realization like, oh, it's not going to work in my favor. So I'm the one that filed that thing. She asked me for the divorce. I'm the one that filed it a week later, because I knew based on her previous behavior and with this event that happened, me discovering, honestly, I appreciate the fact that she was honest with me and told me she was with somebody else, that I took the initiative to file that thing, and it's very easy to blame somebody else, but it put me in a place where I was able to reflect a lot of my own behaviors and how insecure I was and how lacking confidence I was as a person, which projected out in our marriage, which caused a lot of these issues too.
Yeah.
But it's so easy for me to go and blame her for everything she did.
Right. Well, and we've had conversations where you said you really took a look at yourself and how you created the situation, which is a very, very high level, emotionally intelligent thing to do, which a lot of people don't do. So for that, I give you a lot of credit. And that's, I think, probably where your journey
Thank you
really took a leap, right? Because you were able to do that. And,
I don't want to make fun of that situation.
I just talked through the applause, because sometimes it just happens, and just keep going. So.
No, I appreciate that. But I think when you're on the journey, it's so much not about recognition. And I think a lot of us seek that out. Like, we want to be recognized for our feats and things that we discover, and project so much the attention that we want and desire from somebody. Unconditional love, I think, is really the bottom line for that. We all want this sense of unconditional love, but don't understand how to give it first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true what you say about going on this journey in the beginning, because I remember when I first started really taking a dive into learning about myself and my emotions, and I really wanted a pat on the back from people every time I had a breakthrough, and I really wanted to tell everyone, and then it almost became like I'm this like person on a little bit of a high horse talking to people about everything I'm learning, and then eventually it became such a journey that was about me that it didn't matter if someone noticed or not how much I had grown. It was just because that's who I became. And then I think the biggest impact we can make in the world is when we just go out there and we demonstrate by example how we've grown without having to say, hey, everybody, look at me, look at what I've done, and look at how much I've grown and how brilliant I am, right? It's a sense of like humility, and you just become very humble. And then you just want to share as much as you can in the ways that you can, to be able to maybe assist someone else who may be looking to go on that journey, because not everybody is.
Yeah, and I think people will find a lot of frustration because there was things that I discovered, read a book about, or found out about myself that I wanted to go share, with my parents or my brother, or anybody in my life, and they're like,
"You're crazy.
You're crazy. What's wrong with you?"
Yeah,
and you're like, "No, really, I really found this out, and like I wanted to share with you."
Yeah.
But it is that journey by yourself.
Yeah, it really is. And they're like, why are you trying to change me? What are you trying to say? Right?
Yeah. The one thing my brother hates is me talking about emotions all the time. It's so cool to find these things out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, frustrating. Like, why didn't I find this out when I was like 20 years old?
Yeah.
Why am I finding out this shit at 40?
Yeah. And, yeah, exactly. And this is why I talk to my kids so much about it, and this is not a new conversation within my household, because I feel like that's kind of changing the trajectory of my family's legacy. Is like, now we are a family that talks about emotions, and now they're going to be equipped to go out there and make changes in the world because they're not afraid to live authentically and talk about emotions. So I feel very official with this pen. I guess keep it in my hands.
You're very poignant. It's like you're a politician. I want to tell you.
Definitely not. Here,
I'm going to get.
Oh. Better? Yeah, my ear.
You look very astute with that.
Okay.
With your pen in your. No, and the thing is, like, this journey of self-discovery, this journey is really isolated.
It can be.
And there's so many things that you wish you can share that you really can't. And when you're trying to project that and have people understand, forcing people, frustrated that they don't, this is the moment you're like, you're not doing it right. At least in my opinion. Yeah. It's really about like finding peace within yourself and finding humility with other people, understanding that, you know what, they're always going to be selfish. They're always going to think about themselves first. And no matter what you find out, no matter how humble you become, they're still probably never going to get it. I think I've told you before, like my dad, I mean, he was almost 80 years old and he still was acting like he was 15.
Yeah. I would say same for mine. Yeah.
And it's like, well, how do you get that old and not figure this out? It's like, okay. Because it's somebody you look up to for so long. It's like, they should know better. But honestly, they're just kids trying to figure this stuff out just like me. And
as us, yeah.
A lot of us are just children in adult bodies.
Yeah.
And
this is so true.
and finding the forgiveness and finding the humility to be like, you know what, you're okay. I know that you've just taken advantage of me. I know you've wasted completely a lot of my time, and that's okay. I will hopefully not do that again. That could be relationships, that could be family, everything else.
Yeah, and you know what you had me thinking about just a second ago when you said, well, we're trying to drag people into our journey and get confirmation from them, is maybe we do that because we're afraid to go on this journey alone, because it, like I said, it is scary. We've both discovered it can be scary. You can feel isolated. You can feel, confronted, and it really is all about you going on this journey. And so maybe we at first we initially try to drag people in and get them to validate us, because we're like, am I doing this right? It's like, I need your approval. Is this, am I going to do this alone? Because we're so afraid to go into those spaces, those places that may be scary within us, that we don't want to go alone, and then eventually we surrender to that. We're like, we have to go alone.
Well, yeah, and that's why we stay in relationships longer than we need to, because we're more afraid to be alone.
Yeah.
And rather than be isolated, because we'll stay. I stayed in my marriage. It was like year 7 that I was questioning it. It was in my previous marriage. I was there for 12 years. It's about year 7 that I really started questioning things. And it was year 10 that I'm like, gave myself absolutes, but never stuck to them. I'm like, we're going to go on this vacation. And if we don't, make things better after this, I'm going to file a divorce. But that was year 10. It wasn't until year 12 that I actually we actually did the divorce,
Right.
and so the greater fear is being alone. And why? Because we don't feel like we can do it alone.
Yeah.
We feel like it's easier to deal with the devil we know rather than the devil we don't know.
There's your paper again. I also think we're creatures of habit, like we've talked about in the past, and it's about doing something new and scary, right? Not necessarily always. I mean, there's part of it about being alone. Yep. And then the other part is about not wanting things to change because we're very familiar with these things and we've become almost addicted, right? Like we were talking about, to the feelings and the emotions and the drama that whatever the situation is, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whatever that's creating for us, we've become addicted to that feeling of either anger or victimhood or whatever it is, and so it's a combination of all of those things, right?
But that's why we keep with the drama.
Exactly, yeah. And the fear of the unknown and creating something new is so scary until you actually start doing it and realize, hey, I'm sick of this. I want things to change, and I'm going to actually do something about it this time.
Yeah, and I think one of the first takeaways that since you brought it up is identifying those patterns.
Yeah.
I think, really taking a step, if you really want the change, and Mary will tell you about accepting change, but if you really wanted to change, is really seeing where those patterns manifest. And really they do manifest from your childhood, how your parents grew up. If you grew up in a single family house or a single parent household, dual parent, doesn't matter. It's whatever your relationship was, or your understanding of those dynamics early on in life, how you felt love. I think that's really where it comes from.
Oh, absolutely.
And seeing those patterns play out. And I will tell you, most often, those patterns are very prominent in your life based on how your parents or a single parent was dealing with the relationships at the time.
Oh, absolutely. And everything else. Like so much of our psychology is developed by the time we're, I think, 8 years old. Like we're just this like blob that's being molded. And so I think every single one of us has taken a look back and gone, oh, I always hated my parents and said I would never be like them. And then we're like, ooh, like there's so many things. There's so many views of your reality. There's the views about even your relationship with food, your relationship with money, your relationship with love that is so deeply ingrained into who you are based on your experiences in those formative years, that it takes that one moment in your life where maybe you've had some it's been some kind of event or a trauma or even a good event or something where you're just like, bam, and your eyes open and you're like, I see it, right? I see how I'm like my parents and I want this instead, or maybe this is a great thing that you see and then I want more of that, right? But it's all about that one moment where you have that clarity and you have that eye opening and you have the awareness. That is the beginning, that is the foundation of like a catapult into a change in a decision, the decision.
Yeah, I think in my lowest moments, I reflected upon because I was in Child Protective Services. I did child abuse investigations for about 10 years. One of the criteria for determining neglect is food, clothing, and shelter. And there's supervision. Supervision is a broad category, so I won't talk about it here. But food, clothing, and shelter, are the basic needs for any child. And so I think a lot of our fears and a lot of things we're worried about when it comes to relationship is losing some of those. It goes back to very basic survival mechanisms. So we have to recognize that in moments of drama, in moments of turmoil, that we're not going to ever go out without food. We're not going to go without shelter. We're not going to go without clothing. So what are we really truly afraid of?
Yeah.
Losing a job and projecting it on somebody. Whatever we're going through, we're continuing to project it on somebody. But what are we afraid of losing? It's really the question.
Yeah, it really is. And that's something that I think differs between each person.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the loss of approval, the loss of love, the loss of acceptance, the loss of, I don't know what else, everybody's so different. And that's what's the beauty of this crazy planet we live on and all the different people that are here is like, it's so different for everyone. There's so much opportunity to learn, but all it really takes is the same formula for everyone: awareness and looking inward and being curious about whatever it is, whatever topic it is. There's so many topics that we have a never-ending list of topics we could talk about.
Absolutely.
But it really boils down to the same thing. It's about the awareness and the decision and the mindfulness. It's just like eyes opening,
So and I think the easiest way to identify that, the most tangible way was, we both experienced weight loss, significant weight loss. Yeah. My heaviest, I was about 310, 320. And my go-to was always food. And that is a drug addiction just like anything else.
Oh, absolutely.
And my projection, my drama was like blaming everybody else for my weight gain. And embracing the fact that it was decisions and choices in my life that caused those issues. I needed the issues in order to project outward. I needed some fuel to blame somebody else for it. Like, it's your fault that I'm gaining all this weight. Well, no, it's not. It's choices I'm making. And I think that's easier to kind of digest because it's tangible. It's food. I'm ingesting it. But when it comes to other things in life that we accept trauma, like anger and frustration, we project outward because there's really nothing to tie anger back to. Like, being overweight, I can tie back to food.
Right.
But being angry at something or a situation, what do you tie that back to?
Well, so this is where we kind of talk a little bit about the neuroscience. I study a little bit about neuroscience and brain chemistry. And what I think we realize and we're starting to learn is that our brains actually produce chemicals when we're in these aroused states, such as stress, such as, we talk about the fight or flight, right? And cortisol is created and all these, adrenaline is created. And so we're in these moments and our brains are producing these chemicals that flush into our body. Well, the same as it would be with cocaine. If we were constantly flushing it into our body gets used to that, right? And our body then becomes addicted to these chemicals of stress. And so therefore, when we're in, it's just like a drug addict, right? They're going to create a situation where like they're going to put themselves in a situation where they can get that drug, no matter what it is. And for us on a subconscious level, I believe in our lives, a lot of the times we'll play out, we'll make something in our life in order to be angry so we can get that rush. It's just like the needle to the vein. Just like the emoji that you had. It's like, we're going to create the situation in order to create that brain chemistry, like a chemical download into our body. And this is just stuff I've studied, and that's really been, an aha for me in my life, because I was addicted to depression and feeling victimized and feeling just this like sinking feeling of just depression and anxiety. And when I discovered the book that we're going to mention later, I really started learning about what needs to happen is that I need to be aware of when I'm going into these states that are creating my brain to release these chemicals. I need to be aware of that and be able to shift my behavior so that I can prevent that from happening. It's like a drug addict going, I realize I'm jonesing for my whatever, and now I'm going to go to the gym instead. It's just creating this new behavior in your life.
Creating new habits.
Yeah, creating new habits like we always talk about in order to change the behavior that you're looking at changing.
Yeah, and I'll bring in the book in a second, but I think establishing good habits before those really low points in your life.
Yeah.
Like when I went vegan, I talked about it before. Mm-hmm. I would choose and find different places to go in low moments and stress moments and last minute, like decisions like, hey, I have 10 minutes before I have to do the next appointment. What's a quick place for me to go? I've mentioned it before. I've mentioned Taco Bell. But there's other places you can go to. So it's really kind of finding those things before you're in states of immediate or immense drama or in immense emotional states. Yeah. Because then you go back to your habits, right?
Absolutely. And you have to really set yourself up. You have to anticipate this. I just did a big pop on the mic, but you have to really be able to set yourself up. It's almost like meal prepping, right, for the week. That you may be forced with those moments where it's going to be quicker to go through a drive-through. So if you take the time to set yourself up and maybe meal prep and have some things available, right? It's about when you decide to make this change. Okay, what are the things I can do to kind of like prevent the obstacles that may arise when I'm in those states of high intensity and high stress, or maybe you hit a wall or something happens that triggers you, you have something to fall back on, like you said. You've got your resources, and that's so important. So important.
And I think one resource is this book, and I'll put it up here, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. You mentioned that?
Yes, yeah, Dr. Joe Dispenza. This was a book that I discovered a few years ago. Yeah. And he really goes into, he's really good at explaining it in a very simple way, but how the neuroscience and the brain chemistry and the biology works around our addiction to these stress hormones. And if you're looking to make a change at all, you have to be willing to know what's happening, make a decision, and then start creating new habits to go into the direction that you choose to go. So this supports that for sure.
So Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habits, here on Amazon. You can go find it anywhere else. Audiobook is look like it's free to Audible trial.
Oh, if you don't, if you want to do a trial of Audible.
Possibly.
Audible.
I don't know.
You don't do Audible yet?
No. I live and breathe Audible.com.
Okay.
Or,
right.
Well, at least the audio. I do Apple audio. So,
got it. Okay. So, yeah.
But I think the biggest identifier is changing the habits. And you really want to, I guess it's the decision or the desire to want the change. Because so much of us, blow up our hands and say, you know what, because of work, I can't do this, because I had kids, because I get home late, because we give ourselves so many excuses to not really do that. We continue that drama. We continue to add to the drama because that's all we know. That's all we're familiar with. But there are other things out there. And if you're tired of constantly being in drama, chances are you're the one causing it. Unfortunately, I wish there was a different way to say it, but
it's very true.
You are your own worst enemy. And you will cause your own drama. And that comes from my own experience.
Exactly. Mine too.
And projecting out blame for other people is a way to mask the responsibility of taking it on yourself. That is ultimately, at the end of the day, what you're doing. You are avoiding actually taking action and getting away from that. And that's why you are prime to drama. I am sorry.
And there's no judgment here, because this is what we're only sharing these things because we love you, and we've gone through these things ourselves. So it takes, like we were talking about earlier, the ability to really take a hard look inward, right? Yeah. And that's where it begins. That's a huge part of the evolution.
Well, shit, even just taking a break.
Just take a break.
And so like that moment you're like, well, fuck.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Why am I so angry?
Wait, yeah.
Why? I know I've yelled at my brother, I've yelled at my wife, I've yelled at my husband 40 different times. It doesn't seem to change, but yet I'm always angry.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Well, maybe I need to actually do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so much of my life has done things differently, done the opposite. And it's been successful so far, I think.
Yeah, well, because every single time you make that decision to do something different than you would normally do, you create new neural pathways in your brain, which means you operate at a different level. And the more you do that, the more it becomes your normal way of behavior. And then you can just continue to do that and grow and grow and grow. It's an exciting journey.
Absolutely.
I love it.
So what did we learn today, Miss Mary?
Oh, good grief.
We are a creature of our own habits.
We are creatures of our own habits. We get addicted to the way that we are. And in order to make the change, we need to have the awareness and the courage to take a look inward, and then also the courage to make a decision to create new habits. How's that?
That works for me.
My recaps are getting better.
Yes, absolutely. So we're here every week on the Inner Journey. Mary Van Alstyne. Sometimes Heather. I love Heather.
I go by both.
We go by many things here. But we'll catch you guys next week. Different topic. If you guys want to tune in, leave your comments, questions about anything you wanted to talk about here on the show. If you want to call in, whatever.
Yeah.
Leave a comment.
Don't forget the likes and the hearts.
We love the hearts. We love the loves. We like the likes, but we love the loves.
We love the loves.
So we'll see you guys next week.